welcome everyone to a new episode of the movie pod. Well, I'll call it the podcast, but it's the movie potluck, where we talk about all kinds of different things with different movies. And this week happens to be all about pets. I'm gonna start out by saying that this episode is not just about animals in film because that would be really long and we'd need 2 hours to go into that one. This one is specifically about pets. So, one of the differentiations that I was working with as I was putting this all together is we adopt a lot of weird animals. Um, Human beings really don't just stick to cats and dogs. Oh my gosh, we will adopt just about anything that's out there. And it's what makes it even funnier is the number of movies that we have that are about really weird combinations of animals and humans working together is it's pretty enormous. But let's stick to the animals that we actually would like bring into our house, and or maybe in the case of some of these we wouldn't bring them into our house, but they fall into that trope. So for as long as human beings have been basically storytelling, they've been telling stories about animals, with animals, whether it's man versus nature, featuring a giant grizzly bear, or something more supernatural where humans experience life as an animal. We have countless stories to tell. But when it comes to the bond that humans share with animals, where domesticated animals live with us, we have a very unique idea and lots of different and amazing stories to tell around that. When we tell upbeat stories like cartoons that come in, like the Aristocats, 101 Dalmatians, both via Disney, uh, both. Well, you know what? I'm going to stop and just pause for a second and say Disney really seems to get the pet and person relationship right. They really just are able to strike that chord in a way that few studios really get. And I'll explain what I mean by that later. But I just had to give a big shout out to Disney right now. Um, the world has huge problems, and feisty felines and canines save the day without humans really being aware of how much the pets are actually doing in order to make that happen. 101 Dalmatians is such a perfect example of that. The people are not clueless, but much more clueless than the pets, which I love. I just absolutely love that trope. We have feel good movies where pets play a bridge between people and relationships. Because of Winn Dixie, That Darn Cat, both of which have pets that play central roles in helping their humans learn truths both about each other and about themselves, and usually create some kind of story dynamic that without them simply wouldn't exist. Then we have the heroic pets like Balto, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and the 2018 movie called Alpha about a man in the Ice Age who is learning basically to live on his own, and he's saved by a wolf. Really great storytelling in that one. We have Babe, Pig in the City, a pig on a farm that learned to herd sheep and saved the farm. We then have Lassie, White Fang, Eight Below, all heroes, pets as just absolute saviors to their humans. Absolutely love those movies. Horror has its own share of pet stories. Cujo, the rabid dog. And just as a quick side note, I highly suggest that before you watch the movie Cujo, that you read the book Cujo, because the movie does no narration of Cujo, and I mean for obvious reasons, but if you read the story of Cujo and you get sort of Cujo's inner monologue when you watch the movie, it feels like a totally different movie. It's amazing. It's actually really good. And the movie is excellently done too. We have the classic oh wait, I forgot Pet Cemetery. Gotta throw in Pet Cemetery there. The story of the pets that don't want to die, or the people that don't want their pets to die. Then we have the classic tale of a boy and his rat and another rat. and then 10,000 of his friends. That's Willard, or Ben, depending upon which movie you want to talk about. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Nanook, the trusty husky in The Lost Boys, who saves the day more than once from vampires. Just I absolutely love that. That's such a great, that trope is also one that I definitely want to talk about tonight. And let's not leave out comedy. We've got the Garfield movies that I have loved since I was little, just because they are so goofy and because John is just so clueless. That interaction where the cat is sort of the he's in control and John is just basically being sort of manipulated by the cat is just, if you've ever lived with cats, that's exactly how it feels. Beverly Hills Chihuahua was really fun. Scooby Doo, right in that same vein, and Bolt all make us laugh and remind us of that close bond that we have with animals and how much our animals maybe know a lot more than we do. Maybe we don't really understand them as well as we think that we do. My last category is the hardest category. This is the category where the pet dies. Or some majorly significant trauma happens in the film and it just makes you so sad for the pet. You're not human if you have watched Marley and Me and you didn't cry. My first experience with sadness in a movie like that goes back to this movie called Sounder. And Sounder is an amazing movie. It was done, I believe it was done in the 70s. It's absolutely spectacular. It has Cicely Tyson in it. They're a sharecropper family. A lot of very bad things happen. And toward as sort of like the setup to the film, the people that come to their farm actually shoot the dog. So big trigger warning and, sort of semi spoilers, but the dog does live. And much like the sort of metaphor for the film, everything changes. Bad things happen and everything changes and things go on. So anyway, that to me, that's like one of the best movies that they're really sad, but the pet plays such a pivotal role in healing and sort of understanding where we are in life, and sadness is a part of that. Of course, there's Lassie. I mean, I feel like I don't know if anyone has ever watched a Lassie movie and not felt like crying during a Lassie film, but that's a big one. Yeah, to me, that's just like one of the hallmarks of watching Lassie. You have to cry at least one time. So I'm going to introduce my guests, but I'm going to ask them with what movies they've chosen, which category they think their movies fall into. Will it be the feel-good movies that teach us something? Will it be horror? Will it be heroes? Will it be comedy or tragedy? Let's see what they have chosen. So, Betty, let's start with you. First of all, welcome to the show. How are you? How's the house selling going?
Good. I have an offer and I'm under contract with contingencies.
Congratulations. I'm super
Thank
excited
you.
for you.
Just took a
Awesome,
couple
awesome.
days, honestly.
So tell us what movie you chose tonight and tell us which category it fits in, but also tell us why you chose this movie.
So I feel like I have homework or like I'm doing classwork now in front of everybody.
You kind of are.
So I chose The Fox and the Hound because when I was little, I was really and free. So I chose The Fox and the Hound and Free Willy. So when I was little, I really liked sad movies, and so I really loved Fox and the Hound. And I don't know, I like Unlikely Friendships, but now I'm watching it like same with Free Willy. I'm watching it going, this poor little fox was taken in by a human and then just abandoned in the woods after it had been domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
And then ironically, Willy, they do a whole movie about freeing him, and the show well like stayed captive for its entire life until they let it go and then it died.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, now they're on sad on a different level.
So, okay, so tell me what do you think? First of all, tell us what The Fox and the Hound was about so that we understand what that relationship was.
So the Fox and the Hound was um, a hunter kills a baby fox's mother, sort of like Bambi. Um, and a woman is led to the little baby fox and takes it in. So the fox is curious, makes friends with the hound dog. He's a hunting dog. Oh.
But he's also a puppy, right?
Yes, so the
At the
puppy
time
and
they
the
meet,
baby
right?
fox become friends. So you have Todd is the fox, and then Copper, the dog, and they become best friends. But then Copper goes away and becomes a hunting dog, and so that means they're enemies. And so they're not supposed to be friends. They're an unlikely match. And then chaos ensues. So the human decides
Chaos
that she's going
ensues.
to let go of her domesticated fox in the middle of the forest, which he obviously doesn't know how to take care of himself. He's used to the good life. Um, and then he meets a girl, luckily, on um, his very first day in the woods. So she teaches him how to be a fox. And then there's a big finale where the dog could kill the fox and lets him go on his way, and everybody lives happily ever after.
Okay, so let's break that down for 1 second. So we've got
The fox and
abandonment.
the hound.
We have abandonment in this
Yes.
one. We have a kind of parallel to racism or speciesism, however you want to
Yep.
call it. We have the bonds of friendship and how deep they go. And we have the sort of hapless humans that basically foster onto their animals whatever it is that they're experiencing, right? Because was there
Right.
sort of like a feud between the two of them too?
Yes. But
Yes.
I feel like the feud came because she had a fox, and the fox was getting on his nerves.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so she was tough, and she shot his car, and then he still ended up driving it to the woods to hunt. So she shot his engine of his car with a shotgun, and then he drove the car away.
It was a strong car. Yeah, they don't make cars like
It
they don't
was
make
a
them like they
really
used
old.
to.
Yeah, they definitely don't make them like they used to.
So so that is actually I think that you have chosen a really good movie as a representation of how pets bridge the gap between how humans are supposed to behave, and we see it in the way that the pets end up behaving. So the
Right.
humans are still using really horrible behavior for the most part, but the pets somehow rise above it, right?
Well, the
um
old lady was always really good, but she did
she
pick
had a
up the
good
little
heart.
fox. Yeah, she did pick up the little fox. She's like, I'm not going to be lonely anymore.
Yeah, says like every cat lady ever. So yeah. Um.
My cat
Okay.
out of this.
So I'll come back to you in a second for your second movie because I want to break that one down too because I think that one's got a very interesting. Um. There's a very interesting niche that that movie fills, which I'm going to get to in a second. But Tori, let's introduce Tori. Tori, how are you?
I'm good, actually. I'm very good.
How was your
Just,
week?
well, it's been pretty sad, actually, and this is kind of a bittersweet topic for me because we had to put down our dog, uh,
Right.
and she had cancer, and so that was really sad. She went really downhill really fast, and it was every time you put a pet down, it's really sad. So I say that to say this. I picked Old Yeller as my first movie because he was I felt like the story epitomized a boy and his dog. Like
Oh, it
that
does.
that was that was his best friend, that was his everything, and he had to be the one to put his dog down. Spoiler alert. But you wanted me to you asked what category I thought this fell under. It was definitely the tragedy
The
category.
tragedy.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Because I mean, The first time I ever read the book, I was like, "Oh my God, he's really not going to shoot him, is he?" But he had rabies, like he had to shoot him, It was
Yes,
inevitable.
and just, not to segue movie universes together, but it this is the reason that Cujo existed.
Hmm.
Cujo existed because he was bit by a rabid animal, and
Mm.
that's exactly, yes, you didn't want Old Yeller to become a Cujo. Um
No.
Old Yeller is one of those really sad movies, and I'm gonna put it on the level of Marley and Me, simply because um, there's so much else that happens in this movie, which I mean, of course, everybody remembers the part of when he had to put the dog down, but this movie was not just high adventure; it was insanely impactful when it came to not just his relationship with the dog, but his relationship with his family's relationship with the land, so to speak. Like, I mean, there was just so much that went into that story altogether. But that movie was really well done. And I gotta say, a movie like this probably couldn't be made today, simply because of I think animal activists would have a field day with the way that they sort of portrayed and made things happen in this movie. But it is one of the most fascinating films about how human beings sort of bond with animals, and then how animals take that bond and respond to it, like when he fought the bear, when he fought the other dog, when he was sort of um just shepherding the boy. And it's sort of amazing that we don't see a lot more of that, because I feel like that is something that we kind of all long for in our pets, for them to be that close to us, close enough that they understand, instinctually what we need. I really, really, I have to say, I really like that movie a lot. So good choice, excellent choice.
Thanks.
Um,
Shiloh's a good one for that boy and his dog trope too.
Oh, that's right, Shiloh. I
That was
forgot.
a
You
good
know
one.
what?
That
I
was one of my
totally
favorite
forgot about
books.
Shiloh. That
Yeah,
also was a really good movie. That was made into an excellent
it
movie.
was. I was
I,
surprised, like how
I
well
have to
surprised.
I have to say, I'm going to go back to my intro and talk about Sounder one more time, just because I feel like this is it. Sounder was one of the first movies that I ever saw that left such an impact on me that I wanted to make movies because of it. My dream, the whole reason I went to college for filmmaking was because of this movie, plus a couple of others, but this movie was sort of like what brought out this idea that telling a story that big and that deep and that important was, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to tell these kinds of stories. And if you watch the trailer for Sounder, you won't even see the dog, right? You hear the dog at the very beginning and you don't even see him at all, because the story is like that big. But the story is so pivotally about the relationship between Sounder and, really, the eldest boy, but the whole family. And it's one of those movies that, like Old Yeller, has a feel to it that we just don't sort of do anymore. Marley and Me is the closest I think that we've come, and oh my god, I mean, there was not one person in the theater, and I mean even grown guys that you would never expect to even be seeing crying in public were definitely crying in public. Um, it takes a lot, I think, to get to that level, but pets do it. Pets absolutely make us feel that way. Like Tori, I had a cat earlier last year, actually, that we had to put down, and our cat was, I think that he was 17. I think he was almost 18. Not, maybe not quite, but that's a
Well, you
long
led,
time.
yeah, you led a good life.
Yeah, that's a long time for a cat to be around, and it's a long time even in our years to
Mhm.
share space. And the I think that that's what and why pets, in especially in our movies and our stories, are so important, because they sort of transcend other events. You know, it's not just uh, a one thing or other. It's like they're always around. And that kind of feels good. So yes, so the sad part of it is deeper, I think, even than some of the other sad things that happen in our lives because they are so important to us. Um, okay, the movie that I chose, I'll say the movie that I chose. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to start with something else first. I the idea of losing a pet is one of those things that's like it doesn't. It's not just that it doesn't feel good; it feels so reactionary, right? If somebody if your pet runs away or if your dog is lost or whatever, because of Winn-Dixie, despite the fact that it's such a feel-good movie in the end, Winn-Dixie is scared to death of thunderstorms, just absolutely terrified of them. And it's one of the reasons that during the film Winn-Dixie runs away because he hears the thunder and he gets really scared. um and it's a terrifying feeling to not know how to communicate with an animal in order to bring it back into your fold, right? Because all you can do is call its name, go looking for it, whatever. So the movie that I chose was Homeward Bound, which is the story of these three very unlikely animals who basically get what they think is abandoned. They're not, but they decide to try to get back home. And the there is a beautiful dynamic in Homeward Bound that is clearly a lot more the animals being the best part of us. You know, their personality traits, their rush to inquisitive sort of trouble, the stalwartness, the I guess even well, I shouldn't say even for the cat is just the cat, Little Miss Precious.
Sassy.
Yeah, I just love everything about this movie, both because it makes me feel like, you know, there is this essential hope in finding your way home, but also there's just something about this movie that makes me feel like um no matter what we face, our animals really, if we there's something about the way that our animals feel toward us. I'm projecting here. I'm totally projecting. But in this movie, there's something about the way that the animals feel toward us that makes me feel happy, that makes me feel like, oh, this is the way that it's supposed to be. This is the idealized world that I see inside of my cats and my, you know, my well, I shouldn't call her my dog, but she's part of the family. This is how I think that they see me, right? I'm probably 100% off base, but it feels good to think that. So when I watch Homeward Bound, it is sort of one of those like it shores up in my head that, oh, I'm not the only person thinking that the animals' desire to be home is so huge that they would go to the ends of the earth to get there. And also, I mean, I didn't know this when we first watched this movie, but apparently this is based on a true story. I mean, not that the
Really?
cats and dogs were talking to each other, but you know, they actually did go all the way across country and eventually found their way home. So kind of good. I like that a lot. Um, Okay, so Betty, tell us about your second movie and tell me why your second, or where, first of all, where does your second movie fit in? And secondly, why did you choose that movie again? Because I want to talk about how Free Willy was so big at the time that it came out.
So I chose Free Willy because, well, I was obsessed with it. Um, Little boy gets abandoned by his mom and is living on the streets. He's stealing food, and at the time you're a little kid, you're like, he's such a bad boy. No, he was just hungry. Um, and so he gets taken in by child services, and goes to stay with an adopted or I guess foster family.
Hmm.
And then he has to do clean up this place that he messed up. He had got paint on the wall, spray painted it. Um, and then he becomes friends with the whale while he's there, and he's the only person who can connect with this animal. Because Willy won't perform for anybody else. So um, he becomes friends with the whale, and they become a big success together until the guy tries to get rid of the whale, and then he has to free Willy.
There's this iconic line in Free Willy that in our family we used all the time for ever in a day, and it's like this: whenever you want to do something with passion and a lot of emotion behind it, it's "Let's free Willy." And
Mhm.
if there's nothing else in that movie, the spirit of not just connection, but the desire to sort of let go is so enormous. The gravity of him letting go of Willie as his best friend and maybe only connection that he really feels like he has um, is it's kind of a it's almost the opposite of most of our pet movies, right? Most of our pet movies are about keeping our pets close and then feeling that enormous loss when they're gone. And yet, I feel like at the end of Free Willy, although of course he was sad, he understood that
But it was
the
also about like letting other things go, like his mother.
that's well, I was just going to get there, right? The
Yeah,
metaphors are huge in this movie,
yeah.
including up to the point I think um, where the bond of an animal with any human, i- we sometimes forget the power and the agency that we have over other living creatures, and we either purposefully or sometimes by accident are put in these positions, and the power of that responsibility is so huge that in the moment it might feel like it's the right thing to do to do things that maybe are counterproductive to the actual important aspect of that animal's life. And in Free Willy, you definitely get that sense like, yeah, there's something so huge happening here. That the abandonment of him by his mom couldn't be reconciled until after he had an attachment that was basically as big as a whale. I mean, like, there's just so many good parts of that story. So and also, I mean, it was so iconic. It was such an iconic
Yeah.
film when it came out. It was really, really well done.
But he couldn't.
Um,
I guess another thing he couldn't really connect with the family until he let the whale go either,
right,
and they
right.
had to help him let that whale go, like quite literally.
Which I also feel like is, yeah, that is, I think, part of what we were talking about before with Old Yeller and the boy having to put the dog down, right? It's sort of, it's an extension of the same thing, except it's obviously there's a, in one situation you're giving freedom to an animal, but in the other situation you're actually releasing the animal from um suffering and things that we don't want our animals to have to experience. Either way you slice it, it's really a difficult situation to be in, not because we have the agency, but because we have the love. Our pets are so valuable and important to our psyche that to do either of those things is just enormous. It's just a massive amount of emotional work, but it plays into the idea that there are so many other instances where this is sort of, again, the metaphor for how we let go, how we create attachments, how we figure things out, and sometimes it's actually through our animals. I just really love that. Tori, what was your second movie, and tell us why you chose that movie.
Okay, so my second movie was Beethoven. And I chose this movie because whenever I was growing up, I had a Newfoundland. And Newfoundlands are very, very similar to St. Bernards. They're big and black, and St. Bernards are usually brown and white, but they're the same type of big burly dog. And the antics of Beethoven was just like my dog Ralph in every sense of the word. Slime everywhere, messes. Like he shed in clumps, so it
Oh,
looked like it looked like yeah, he in Ralph was 180 pounds, and like
Oh my god.
just the calamity. He was a walking calamity. Like, it just we went through so many vacuum cleaners and everything, and this movie just really reminds me of Ralph. And there were such family dogs too, and I love big dogs, and I think that this really epitomized what a big dog could bring to a family, because a lot of people are intimidated by a dog that big, but they're really big babies. And I think that it did a really good job showing how close even though the dog was really bad, how close the family really loved him, and how they were never gonna let him go to the pound. Even though
Right.
he was a little shit. Like they would never let that happen. But yeah, the whole movie is a feel good movie, and that's what it falls into, is the feel good movies. uh that you were talking about. I really just thought that this movie was so much fun whenever I was younger.
Feel good and definitely very comedy.
Yeah.
Beethoven is one of those comedy films like the Shaggy DA. Although the Shaggy DA has more, there's an actual person inhabiting a dog's body, which is hilarious by itself. But the comedy aspect of having a pet and then all of the stuff that happens around that is also, I think, one of those awesome tropes because it's so unpredictable, right? Life with a pet is there you cannot possibly wake up in the morning and know what your pet is going to do. You just don't. It's just it's not possible. Um
I wanted to throw in a very honorable mention, because this I really almost chose this one, but Beethoven was a little closer to my heart. But Lady and the Tramp.
oh, also very good.
Yeah.
Yes. But do you think okay, so Tramp obviously was not anyone's pet at the time, right?
Right.
Do you think that that movie did a good job of expressing well, let me put it to you this way. You answer the question. What do you think was the point of that film? What was the point of Lady and the Tramp as a sort of a wider message?
Like a all together message, like um always be mindful of where other people come from, because
Yeah,
you don't know where people come from. You don't know their backstory. You don't know why they're in the pound. You don't know why they're in jail. It's the same kind of concept. That's
right.
how I see
Two worlds, kind of a Romeo and Juliet kind of situation, right? Where you've
it.
got two
Hmm.
different worlds, but you're judging people based on sort of very arbitrary environmental factors instead of judging people based on who they really are and what their heart is and that kind of stuff, which yeah, I have to say again, another Disney movie, they just always seem to get it right. I don't know how to describe it, but they just get it right. I wanted to say that part of the reason also that I decided to do pets and not just animals in film, because that would, obviously there's a ton of wide open doors if we're just going to add animals into film, is because the relationship that people have with animals that are their pets is very different from the relationship that people have with animals sort of at large. Like, I also really love to watch panda videos and raccoons and things like that. I don't want them as pets. I mean, maybe some
I
people
do.
do, but yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
But um, but by and large, we stick to a kind of a core group of animals, right? And that core group of animals tends to I don't want to say mimic human behavior, but definitely adapts to it in a way that is comforting. Because like I thought about a lot of other movies that kind of fall into the maybe sub genre or well, yeah, maybe subgenre, where you have an animal that was a pet, but then it's no longer a pet, and kind of like in the Toy Story feeling, they feel abandoned and they feel like, the world is just a cold and horrible place.
Fox and
And
the Hound.
sometimes right, Fox and the Hound. And sometimes the resolution, like in the Fox and the Hound, is that you learn a better path. You don't go backwards to what was comfortable and necessarily the way that you've always found joy and comfort. You go forward and you learn something completely new. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know. I'll open this up to you guys, but tell me what you think about this idea. I think that sometimes we express these things in movies with animals because we don't always understand how to express them well enough with people. What do you think?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I
Do,
concur.
And it's
do,
also simpler to break down advanced topics for like small children, things like that.
Oh, right. Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason that Aesop's fables still exist to this day, even though they're not actually pets. When we put things in animal form, we assign personality traits to them. There's the grasshopper and the industrious ants. We see things as having kind of characteristics and traits in animals that we don't always assign all that well to each other, or we have a more difficult time expressing it. Um, okay, let's talk about movies like Beverly Hills Chihuahua. Have you have both of you ever seen that movie?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so there is also, and again, I'm not going to call it a subgenre. I'm just going to call it a different style of sort of movies about pets. And this particular one is sort of about the pampered, spoiled pet, right? The kind of pet that is a little bit like the Aristocats, right? Where they have clearly lived a very privileged life. They get things handed to them, and then they have to explore the world without those things and find their own metal, find their own worth, right? Okay, well, the reason that I bring that up is because I I sense that more and more our movies are being made about animals that almost are like our emotional support animals, and not necessarily about just animals that we befriend, right? um and I was wondering if you guys think that that kind of trend in our stories has anything to do with how sort of isolated we all feel, despite the fact that we're around other people, how isolated we feel emotionally, and how much pets can sort of bridge that gap. What do you think, Tori?
I mean, there's a reason why there's therapy animals and emotional support animals. It's because
Right.
animals can speak to you in a way that other humans can't. I mean, it's just the way it is. Like they feel you, they empathize, and they sit with you, and they let you pour your emotions out on them, and they don't judge you.
That's a good point.
They're not like, oh my gosh, this girl's a batshit crazy. It's not like that. You can be yourself around your animal, and you never have to worry about what they think of you, because you are always going to be the best person in the whole world. You're always going to be their number one. They're going to be so excited to see you every time they see you.
That is a really good point.
Have you guys seen the movie Togo?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
So that's a really good one in terms of like the connection that a person has with an animal and a true version of it. So
Right.
like they did this trek and the dog probably couldn't have done it without his master, and the master probably could not have done it without that specific dog, which was kind of proven whenever all the other dogs couldn't do it. Like Balto became famous off of this run that this dog did.
Right. The
Um,
same with the movie called Iron Will. It
Oh
has a very
yeah.
similar feel to it. Yep.
yeah, so I don't know, I like how they do that, and they show the real life connections, an owner will have with his pet, and then he's literally alone in the middle of the tundra. Just him and the dogs.
Dogs in particular have, I think, I mean, if you say the word dog and then you ask people to tell you, well, what are a dog's characteristics and qualities around humans, the first one that always comes to mind is loyal,
Yep.
right? Dogs are loyal. But I feel like that's like that in itself is sort of I don't know how to say this, but it's kind of like it's almost the exact opposite. We are so loyal to our dogs too that that's what creates that feeling, that strong bond. But and of course, I mean, I'm not, because remember, uh I don't know if any of you know the story of like Rin Tin Tin or I
About it,
guess
but not the story.
even even the story from Japan. Do you know the story that I'm going to talk about?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so well, shoot. I guess if you don't know it, you don't know it. There is this story that is called the story is called Hachi, right? It's sort of the shorter name for Hachiko, and that's the name of the dog. And the dog is so loyal to his owner that um it it's well above and beyond what you would normally expect. There's also like stories of dogs basically being able to find where their past owners are buried, and they lay on their graves. Have you ever seen those?
I have
Mhm.
seen
They're
those and the ones that like wait at the hospitals and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we tell those kinds of stories, and especially when we tell them in movies, that sense of loyalty is always one of the biggest and most important things. But I will say that in movies, that loyalty always comes at a price. And when I say that, I mean the human who gains that sense of loyalty always has to go through a kind of test, and they have to prove that they are good, that they are putting the needs of others above themselves. And then that, and I know that that's not a literal translation in real life. I'm saying that in our movies we have created that as sort of the test of, are you a good person? Your pet will love you. Are you not a good person? The pet will know. And it, to me, that's such an interesting idea because even in the case of Willard with the millions of rats, or well, we'll call them 10,000 rats. Have you ever seen that one with Kristen Glover?
Mm-mm.
Oh God, you guys are missing out. Okay, this story is basically based on a story from the well, I don't know if the story was from the 70s, but it's another movie that was in the 70s called Ben. Okay, and Ben is this rat, and this kid finds this rat, befriends him, and then also comes across another rat named Socrates. Now, these two rats are incredibly intelligent, and we already know that rats are incredibly intelligent anyway. But they're so intelligent that he can basically train them to become his mobile army. And he uses them as a mobile army to sort of get revenge on this person that has been tormenting him for a long time. Um, it's an insane upside down movie. The remake is with Crispin Glover. Okay, and his acting in this movie in particular is so creepy and so awesome. It is just the most awesome movie. I know people that can't watch it because there are rats in it and they get really, really, really phobic. Like they cannot watch it at all. But if you can get all the way through it, it is truly a good creepy movie. And in that movie, which the reason that I brought it up is because even in that movie with the rats acting as like his loyal companion, they realize that he's not good, that Willard is not good, and they turn against him. And it is it's such an interesting concept to me. So tell me what just in terms of how that plays out, what do you guys think about that? What's your opinion on that test as a loyalty test?
I mean, some pets turn evil too. So,
True.
Well, I'm
like,
just glad that the rats in Encanto didn't turn against Bruno. Poor guy couldn't take anymore.
Oh, yeah, good point. But
He was good.
Bruno was good, right?
Yeah,
Bruno
he's
has a
good.
good heart. So the animals didn't turn against him because he's good.
But what if Abuela had poisoned the rat's brains too, and they believed that
Ooh.
he would have died?
Yeah, wow. That's a good wow, that was dark, Betty.
I
Whew.
was so dark. I have that capability occasionally.
All right, what do you think, Tori?
I mean, I think that animals do have that innate ability to tell you to judge your character in a matter of minutes. I don't know. Hmm.
Animal instinct.
Yeah, animal instinct. I mean, it is like I don't know. I can't think of a story off the top of my head where the 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 animals like fight back for the good of like for the good of all, like for the greater good. They don't I don't can't think of any on the top of my head, but like I know that some villains have animals like the parrot in Aladdin, like
Right?
like
Iago. Yep.
yeah, Iago. You got
But even Iago turns against Jafar in the end.
Inspector
yeah,
Gadget had a cat, right?
yes, yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Claw had the cat. Yes, and
I had the cat too.
Gargamel had Azrael in the Smurfs.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
so you know, I think that if an animal is loyal to a person, if that's their person, I don't think it matters if they're evil or not.
See, that's what I was trying to understand, right? Because so many of our movies require that sort of loyalty test. And then there's a couple movies where, yeah, the villain has basically an animal henchman. And the animals they definitely take on the characteristic of the villain. So even in The Wizard of Oz, we have Toto, who is totally pure, sweet, wonderful, and is Dorothy's pet. And then we have the flying monkeys, who are clearly terrible
Yeah.
and terrifying, and they are definitely Wicked Witch of the West. I find that kind of fascinating, actually. Um, okay. So, although this wasn't the movie that I chose, I'll start by telling you what I'm bringing to the movie Potluck, because this was such a huge success at our house and with other people who have seen it and sort of get really squicked out by it. It's amazing. I'm bringing to our movie Potluck something called Bloody Nested Rats. And bloody nested rats are, you see Betty's expression. Bloody nested rats are a meatloaf concoction shaped into a rat, and they have carrot ears, which hold up in the oven very well. They have spaghetti noodles for whiskers, which also hold up really well. And they have a nest underneath them of mashed potatoes, or we've also done angel hair nests with the pasta. And if you're using pasta, we put marinara sauce on it. If you're using mashed potatoes, we drizzled them with ketchup, and it was really stunning. It looked great. They were scary looking. They have black olives for eyes. It was really good. Like, and that's actually on the blog. That there's pictures. It's under the movie Willard. It's that was really, really successful. So that's what I'm choosing to bring to the movie Potluck. And I hope everyone will still have an appetite after they see that for Betty's choice. Betty, what are you bringing?
I'm doing grilled cheese and tomato soup because that seems like something an old woman would cook,
Oh, it
and
does.
it's vegetarian for the animal hunter
Oh, right. Oh,
because
I think that's a good choice.
you know Todd doesn't want his friends hunted anymore.
Or Todd.
Aw.
All
Mm.
right, Tori, what are you bringing?
I'm bringing dessert. I'm bringing the ice cream that Beethoven ate off the little girl's ice cream cone.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Are you going to sort of make it look a little bit slobbery, like, kind of
Yes,
melt it a little bit? And yeah, I think
yeah,
that that would be
Can you bring the
perfectly
alcohol
appropriate.
as well?
yes,
We'll bring some
absolutely.
moonshine. That's what I'll
Yeah.
bring.
Oh, moonshine. Oh my God, that's right. I forgot. Man, for a kids movie, there was a lot of good stuff in that.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. So okay, so we have our food, we have our movies. We are going to talk about one last thing, and that is how we think about what movies would make the best next pet movie. So, Betty, what pet movie or what pet story would you like to see? A story where anything?
Um, I had a dream once where I had where I could fly, and when I ran really fast, I could fly, and then I had a dog that could fly with me.
Ooh, oh, that sounds good.
So me and the dog are flying and
S-
something.
Adventures of a Flying Canine sounds
Yes,
amazing.
does sound amazing.
All right, Tori, what about you?
Eat that, Tori.
Flying dogs, I don't know. Uh, let's see. No, I would think that I would want to have like the dog's idea of a therapy dog, like what goes on in the dog's head. Like all these people have all these serious issues, and they're like pouring it
Oh,
on the dog, and the dog's just like, "What the hell is
I
this?"
hope there's a lot of cursing.
Yes, it would be an adult. It would be an adult film. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I think that would be fun.
they're like dogs like for sakes, man. No more.
Yeah.
I have a
Quit
headache.
petting me.
quit petting me. I would actually like to see a movie where we, much like Planet of the Apes, evolve either a cat or a dog. And I want to say I probably would want to do the cat because I just feel like for
Cats are
no
so
for no
yeah.
other reason than I just project all these things onto cats. I think that cats are maniacal and devious, and I would
Mhm.
love to know what's inside of their brains. But and I know that we've sort of done some of that, like with the movie Cats and Dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we have a little bit of that going on, but I would like to like really have something where can you imagine the first human to hear their cat say that's not the right treat
Yeah.
or
They
Oh,
literally
shit.
human,
shit their pants.
it's 2 a.m. Where's my food?
Yeah.
I,
Peasant.
I
Cats like right in your face.
yes. Yes. I mean I feel like that could be really fun. A little bit kind of Planet of the Apesy,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I could totally see this being kind of a cool thing. So I'm gonna close the show tonight with sort of a sneak preview of what we're gonna do for next week. But before I do that, Tori and Betty, tell us about your pets. Tori, you told us a little bit about your dog, but tell us a little bit about any of your other pets. Which pets do you feel like are sort of the most important in your mind, and just give us a little idea of your relationship with your animals?
I've had a few pets in my life that made a great impact on my life, and they were all dogs. But my dog now, Ryder, he is such a big baby. He's a pit bull mix, and he's not in here with me. He's usually sleeping with me whenever I'm doing podcasts, but he gets so mad if he can't curl up with you on the couch. Like he looks at you like, how dare you not invite me up here? Like,
Aw,
yeah.
baby.
Oh, look at there. Is that a boy or girl?
This is a girl. This is a baby.
Okay. Hi, girl. Hi, sweet pea. Oh, she's like, yeah. But he's a good ride or die dog, and and he's a good guard dog too. And I like that about dogs. I like dogs that are very apt to protect you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, Betty. Although we've seen cameos of your animals, tell us about them.
Well, no one will ever look at you like your dog does.
Oh, so
No.
true. So true.
This is Posey Parker, named after Parker Posey.
Oh.
She is a good girl.
Of
Her mommy,
course.
her mommy is Elfie, and I used to call her my soul dog.
Aw.
Um, and so I've had her for 12 years. I've had this one for 10. And my cats, Nacho and Pants, they sleep on the bed with me every night. And Nacho, the black cat you saw earlier, he basically has to follow me to every room and he has to be there and see what I'm doing at all times.
Nice.
They're like dogs.
So I also have a cat who believes that he's a dog. In fact, he regularly like takes on dogs. If there's a dog around, he'll try to swipe it. I mean, like he goes right up to them too. He is not afraid. Um, his name is Patches. Uh, he is he. We call him the prince in this house because that's basically how he conducts himself in the house. He's entitled to basically everything and anything. That's just him. His personality is very yes, I know, you stupid human. Just do it. Yes, that's his personality. And then I also have I don't know what to call this dog other than to say I babysit often for my daughter's dog. Um, she works kind of far and she doesn't like the dog to be alone all day, so it's a little dog. It's a Chihuahua or Chihuahua mix, I should say. And I have to say that when I first met Paka, I was actually really scared of this dog. I don't know. There's something about Chihuahua energy which is really scary. And over time, this dog has become when I say like sometimes I'll turn around and go, "Oh, where's Paka?" And Paka is like literally at my heels. Not like a little bit away, not there is he is or she, I'm sorry, she didn't mean to say he. She is like right there. She's the sweetest dog. But I understand why people get weirded out by chihuahuas because I got to say that learning curve was pretty big. You don't handle small dogs the way that you handle big dogs, and we've always had big dogs. We had a Dalmatian, we had a an old English sheepdog, which was amazing. We've had retrievers, we've had Labradors, we've always had the big dog. Little dogs, yeah, you know, you treat them very differently,
Yeah.
but they make awesome companions. They are just so sweet.
Chihuahuas were bred just for companionship.
I absolutely love her. She's just a she's really special. And I'm so glad that I opened up myself to think about her as a worthy companion and not just as a thing to fear whenever it came over. So
That would be miserable.
it
Um,
really would be.
Not just similar, like anywhere I try to move, half the time I'll trip over him because he's around my feet.
Aw.
So then I'm accidentally stepping on the cat all the time, but it's his fault.
That's, that also sounds very familiar. Yes, indeed. All right. Betty, how can we find you on social media?
I am on TikTok and Instagram at Betty Chitty Bang Bang.
Very nice. And Tori, how can we find you on social media?
So every Friday night at 9 p.m., me and my co-host Kevin Chaos, I host the Infectious Geek, and we talk about all things nerdy and geeky, from sci-fi to uh, horror movies and such. And this week we're talking about Star Trek versus Star Wars. So please tune in and give us your opinion. Which side are you on, the Star Wars, Star Trek side? And I also do another podcast with my friend Des, and it's called a podcast, and we talk about pot related items.
Very nice. I hope that this week you, at least on the infectious geek, touch on the fact that The Walking Dead is coming to a heroic ending. They just wrapped the last of the
Yes.
episodes of The Walking
Yes.
Dead. So
Yep.
big moment in TV history. Very big, very big.
Like
Absolutely.
of ever?
Yeah, ever. They're not filming it anymore.
No more. There's no more
Wow.
Walking Dead. There's some spin-off material, but there's no
Who
more
survives?
the central line of The Walking Dead. Well, we don't know.
Mm.
I think the bank account of the producers of The Walking Dead is what
Yes.
survives. Yes.
I had a Walking Dead group for a long time. I had like 5,000 members. I co-hosted talking about walkers with Kinte. Like,
It's a
yeah.
mood. It's a big mood. Very
Yeah.
big. You can find me at my blog, moviesandmeals.com, where we try to create movie inspired food. And I realized as I was going through my blog the other day, hey, you know what? I'm not a really great photographer right now with my silly old iPhone. So the food shown is probably a bit better tasting than it actually looks. Just wanted to throw that out there. I have had an awesome time with this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Betty and Tori. And we'll see you next week when our feature will be animation. Any animated movie that you can think of that touches your heart, you got it. Let's talk about it. So we'll see you all next week. Thank you for joining us.